especially in light of the fact that there's the new DP 500 certification that may be of interest to many folks on this call. We are going to have a really fun meetup collaboration with DataViz DC. So I am actively encouraging everyone who's on this call, if you are enthusiastic about Power BI and you would like to do a high-level overview of what Power BI is, our friends over at DataViz DC have already identified someone who can talk about Tableau. And if you have experience with something like Click or Looker or Amazon's data visualizations tools and would like to share a bit about them, it should be a really fun opportunity to look at the different kinds of reporting data visualization tools that are readily available. Then in June 22nd, we've got Matthew Rosh talking about one of my favorite subjects, Rosh's Maxim of Data Transformation, which is an excuse for me to wear my Rosh's Maxim hat. And then the next time that we'll be talking is in late July. Oops. And I would like to encourage you to think about presenting. So if you want to, it's fabulous professional development. It's a great way to make sure that you're developing your skills. Chris, you're pointing at things. What's happening? Is something
upstream as possible, as far downstream as necessary.
Yes,
you
sir.
Don't have Roche's maximum on your camera and on your overlays, you're missing out.
I mean, you know, failing that, you can always tattoo it on your arm, you know, yes, just so you have it handy. So yeah, think about presenting. I'm happy to give you feedback if you're excited about presenting, but want a little bit more support. You're very welcome to speak up in the chat either for May or July. And Leslie also has a lovely form, which if I know her, she's probably already stuck in the chat, that we would love for you to fill out to make sure that we are getting all your great presentation ideas and pulling them into one place. Okay, so before we move forward, we have a question for the crew. We have a Power BI DC LinkedIn group. It is moldering, it's collecting dust, but there's a lot of potential here. We could use it as an alternative to Meetup, which means that we could post these things and have the communications about meetings there instead. But we could also use it as a way to centralize all the job LinkedIn stuff that we get. I know I get a lot of people reaching out saying, hey, do you know somebody that would be a fit for this? And I bet a lot of other people in this group do too. This could be an opportunity for us to get people to post those jobs that may not be a fit for us, but could be a fit for someone in this group and in this area. We can have some rules like must provide salary to make sure that they're providing the information the way that we want, but we can also use it just more vaguely as a community support. So if someone has a question and they're like, Mayday, Mayday, how do I do this? Having someone more local that can provide some feedback might be helpful. And in general, I'm hoping that this might be a way that we could better be able to connect and find each other instead of just sort of jumping on a call or into a meeting once a month in person and then not seeing each other at all through the rest of it. So I would absolutely love folks to say, I love this or I hate this. I'm looking for actual responses, guys, and I'm looking for responses other than meh. So opinions, particularly strong ones, are welcome. Go ahead, Rishi.
So my question in regards to the LinkedIn group is that, is it possible to do both, to have the LinkedIn group for like networking purposes and then having the meetup where we, you know, post about the event, the upcoming events?
Totally. And that's actually the approach that we were thinking of as sort of our starting point. So we can do both. The main thing is, if we're going to try the LinkedIn, it's important that folks actually try to use it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But because there's additional sort of maintenance that goes into that, I'm hoping to get a couple enthusiastic, yes, I'd like to use this before we commit to maintaining that as well. But yes, your actual question, absolutely, it can be a both situation, not a meetup or LinkedIn. Other thoughts? Booty says, yes, it will be helpful. Cool. Anybody else? Do both, LinkedIn and Meetup, great idea. Okay, I'm going to say 3 is good enough to start with. What this means, practically speaking, is that if you're on this call, I'm going to invite you to the group after this, and I hope you'll hang out and ask questions, and we'll see if it works. If it doesn't work, we don't worry about it, but I think it's worth a shot, and I think it could offer some really good value add, if only so that I can get people who keep emailing me about job opportunities to put it somewhere else. Okay, next. So this is an update from Jamie. There's a free Power Platform boot camp. Somehow it's also a festival. It sounds like it's going to be fun. They are looking for people to speak. It will be in person in Reston, Virginia, and it is on a Saturday. So I just took a screenshot of the call for speakers from Sessionize. There's a link here. It's available for another few weeks. If there is something that you would like to share about Power BI, which is of course part of the Power Platform, they would love to have you as a speaker. And if you're interested in attending, I'm sure that they're looking for folks to attend as well. So do check that out, and please consider participating and speaking if you feel comfortable doing so. We've got a couple meetups coming up. DataViz DC has centering accessibility in DataViz, which I'm quite excited about. Then we have another that is also on the same day, so you're going to have to pick. But that's the DC Power Platform meeting. So that'll be talking about the D365 user adoption. And then the Control Your Data Lake with Databricks SQL Warehouse is going to be coming up. I believe that this is virtual, but from North Carolina. I'm including this because I'm very excited about it, and it may be of interest to you as well. That's coming up next week. Then we've got our conference reminder. Come hang out with me at DynamicsCon Live. I will be talking about paginated reports, which you're all tired of me talking about. But there will be a lot of great presenters. If you know Kylie from the Power Platform group, she'll be speaking as well. Then, of course, we have EduCon coming up. Power Platform Conference and Community Summit are both in October. So keep your eyes peeled for those, and start gently encouraging your boss to consider using those sweet conference funds to make sure that you get that training. I always find these to be so much fun. All right, and then one more thing before we get into sort of general chat, or we unleash all of Chris's genius on you guys, because it sounds like he's got a ton of great content. Anybody have any things that they found especially interesting or valuable out of the Power BI March 2023 update? Depending on how this works, we may make this a monthly thing to make sure we're all staying up to date. I know for me in particular, they've added a button that allows you to add a clear all slicers, so that anything that's gotten selected, you can automatically clear away. And I think that's going to be very helpful with some of the reports that I've been working on. What have you guys found exciting about the most recent update?
It's kind of a background thing because I think most people have already been using it and loving it, but Apps for Audiences about, I don't know, 7 or 8 days after it went GA, very quietly with no announcement, became live for the Government Community Cloud.
How cool.
Is where I'm working right now. I'm very excited to have that there because managing workspaces at a bigger than enterprise level is a bit of a bear when you only have one app per workspace. So for those who aren't familiar, Apps for Audiences allows you to pick and choose different groups that get to see different reports and dashboards within your workspace without having to give them access to the whole thing or duplicate them. So really excited that that's available for government clients as well now.
It's fantastic.
Still waiting for data marts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can keep waiting. It's okay.
I was also really excited to see that they've got the Power BI connection into the PowerPoint presentations. With that additional functionality where you can include a single visual as well as the entire report page. I can see that coming in really handy.
You were always able to do that. They just made it easier now.
Yes, I know, but that functionality where you have a button and you've got that interface, especially for folks that are not going to go through those additional steps to get from point A to point B, I think is really, really helpful. Any other thoughts, guys?
I had one question about the Power BI connection to PowerPoint. Is that like a premium feature? Like, do you have to have like a Power BI premium or is it like, do you have to pay extra for that feature, or is that like included in the base model of Power BI?
Base.
Yeah, it's baked in. You might have to do some extra steps in terms of, I mean, I'm trying to remember this since I just saw the video, but so correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I believe you may have to go into the M365 environment to do some enabling to make the option available if it's not already available for you. So there can be some extra steps, but it just showed up for me.
Yeah, it's a plugin. You add it, drop it, paste the link. There they go. It's amazing.
It's pretty cool. And Rishi, when Chris switches to his presentation, I think I know where there's some additional information. I'll send you a link. Any additional thoughts, ideas, feelings about the March 2023 Power BI update? Great. Well, we are way ahead of schedule. If folks want to chat, we can chat, or we can just go ahead and let Chris jump in. What do you say, guys?
I am just going to plug one thing real quick.
Please, yeah.
Dropping a link in the chat and also a link to connect with me on LinkedIn if you have questions or want to hear more. Excella is actively looking for at least one, but probably two more data viz developers with Power BI experience specifically. So if you would like to reach out with any questions you have, there's a link to apply, but I'm also happy to talk about why this is the best place I've ever worked.
And if anybody else has jobs or
yeah,
if they're looking for jobs, this is a great time to also bring that up.
Good question from multiple audiences means better authoring for row level security effectively. Yes, in that you can share just the reports that people should have access to rather than having someone render a report that they don't have access to the data and then feel like there's something broken. But there's also last month an update to row level security that is huge, that allows us to have multiple conditions filtering on a given table. And that's a good update to dig into, because the way it was previously, sometimes you had to really finagle the model a certain way to get things to work, and you might have to duplicate some data on different tables if you had multiple conditions. And so the new thing where you can do like this and this or this meet any of these conditions makes that whole process a lot better as well.
Totally.
And I think
it's now much easier.
Oh my gosh, so much easier.
Right.
I remember the first time my team was trying to figure out row level security in a prior job, and I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a bit of crying involved when we were initially trying to figure out how to make it dynamic. So every step that they make to make that a more intuitive and user-friendly
Yeah.
process, I'm actively cheering.
Yeah, and more flexible, which
Totally.
is what we've been
So
hoping.
what should you create if you add in dynamic row level security to make that solution complete for your customer? You should create a report that allows someone to go in and see what someone has access to, at just like a report back
Mhm.
against the data set. So you can just see what it is that they have access to and go, oh, the reason you don't see that is you don't have row level security and access to see that, and then link back to wherever you're doing your dynamic assignment of rights, be it Dynamics or be it SAP or wherever it is, and then give them those connections. But that is the number one tip for any dynamic row level securities. Make sure they have a report so that someone can go in and see what they should broadly have access to.
Chris, I might be mushing things together, but isn't there some sort of automated report available from the Center of Excellence starter kit? I know there's something like that for Power Platform. Maybe there's not for Power BI.
Not that I know of,
Okay, I'm going to make a note because I'm now curious.
because I've always rolled my own on this one, because it, like, your dynamic row of security is very difficult for, I mean, it's really custom, right? Like,
That's true.
how you're pulling in tables, what tables relate to what, dimensions or facts,
Mhm.
and how you write your DAX statements to do your filtering is very challenging. And it's hard to create a report off the Power BI data set to show it to you. Actually, the easiest way is to go
Service.
back to wherever your source is,
Mhm.
write a custom report that just does that and marries together and shows for any individual what they should have access to or not, and then make sure that that works appropriately, and then show that to your service desk, to your users, so that they can just go in and see, here's what I have access to. Oh, I'm missing whatever customers or something like that, right?
It's a great tip.
Big brain activity here.
All right. I am going to see if I can find that row level security link on my side, but unless there are additional questions from the gang or things you want to bring up, I think, Chris, we should go ahead and turn the floor over to you.
Awesome. All right. Well, I got a ton of stuff to go, so I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get up and running. So everybody, let me know when you can see my screen. Sharing. Yes. Awesome. All right. So in my camera, hello, this is Chris. This is Dax. We love working in Power BI. Someone was asking about the PowerPoint stuff. I got 2 videos that run through all the different capabilities for embedding Power BI out there. I did post those links out into the channel. Do like, subscribe, leave a comment, all that good YouTube stuff. It really helps feed the logarithm. And let's just get into it. All right. This is a Power BI data guide for report design. My name is Chris Wagner. I'm the director of data solutions at Baker Tilly. I am joined live today online with my buddy, my pal, the Wonder Woman to my Batman, Megan Chapman. Megan, are you there? Can you say hi?
Yes. Hello, everyone.
Hey, so excited to see you here. This is Megan's first time. Is this your first time seeing me present?
It is. I'm so excited.
Oh, it's so wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much for coming out on your night off.
Of course.
So I'm also a Microsoft Data Platform MVP for the last 3 years, maybe 4, fingers crossed. Oh my gosh, those things were due 2 days ago. Well, we'll see. I have a couple of awards in this space. You may know me from a variety of different places. I do speak and talk on a very regular basis. This is what I put out this week. This week I did a video on Lucid Charts that went live Monday at 7 a.m. I did a video on Object Tuesday that was out at 7 a.m. I did a live stream on Wednesdays, with Rosie from Microsoft. Where she's the PM for the Power BI feature for on object visuals. I do a live stream every Wednesday from noon Central Time, kind of like a lunch and learn thing where we educate people about stuff going on in the space, interviewing people in this area, in this field. It was a fantastic conversation, not just about everything you can do inside of the new on object, but what's coming next in on object, and some like, oh, hey, they're aware that this is something that doesn't work and they've got good feedback on and they're working on it. So like, you should just definitely check it out. I did present this presentation earlier today, and back in or over in Seattle, and now I'm here in Washington D.C. presenting the same thing here. So busy week for me. And oh yeah, even tomorrow I am doing a recording with raw data for their podcast. So do check that out. That will be out relatively soon. So I'm all over the place. You can find me. But we're here to talk about report design. And the first thing we really need to lock down when we think reports is we need to know, why the heck are we building a report? Understanding what the business need is and what the action items are for why we're creating this report has to be the first thing that we start with, right? Spending a good deal of time clearly articulating the need, clearly articulating what people are going to do with this will help influence and guide the entire report creation. I know Power BI is super fun to work with. I love working with it. I think it's super fun. But just because it's fun to build Power BI reports doesn't mean you need to create thousands and thousands of Power BI reports, right? Like I heard like some of you on this call are involved in the government Power BI instance. I'm sure you've got tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Power BI reports out there where I am sure people are not thinking about, why do we have this? What is the ongoing maintenance of it? Does this take up space in my brain and add value or not, right? Getting down to just the things you need is very important. And that's why at the heart of any Power BI report, you have to really understand why you're doing that activity. What's it going to do? So for the purposes of this report design technique and for going through this, we're going to take you through a real life situation that I was actually had to build out and was tasked with at one point in time, right? We sat down with the executives and we established a number of different goals that had to be met to be considered like, okay, hey, this is what we're doing it for, okay? So the executive said, hey, this has to look great, right? It's going to executives, it's going to our C-suite, it's going to be this thing that we want to feature and talk about and predominantly show off inside of our boardroom meetings. So this thing needs to look amazing, right? So why don't you spend some time on the design, that look and feel, make sure that it really pops, okay? We also want to leverage this because it is going to be a focal point of conversations that we have. We want to leverage this to educate our executives, educate our C-suite, educate our board, our users, everyone in our organization around new ways to think about and look at data and try to inspire them to explore and look at data in new ways. Okay, so we want to change the way they're working and operating today. Oh, and of course, because we're very realistic, still got to export all the data like we've always had, right? So like I still need to export it so that we really need to be able to use this. This is something that's going to drive action in our organization. But so we're going to need to be able to export all the data. Oh, and also it has to be all on one page. And the reason for it is this is going to go up on big screens. We're going to have big screens that we've got this up and running. So that when people walk into our business, they can see the KPIs that drive our business. They can track those and they can start to understand what's most important to our company. And we want to have those up and visible for people as they go about our organization. So in many cases, this is a big marketing piece for our business. So it has to look amazing. All right. At the same time, because it's going to be up all over the place, here's a hook. It has to have a dark feel to it. It can't be this bright thing that's shining out in the night. We want it to have a dark background, and we want the visuals on it to pop. Okay. So that is a lot That's just straight up a lot to potentially attempt to fit into a Power BI report. So where do we start? Well, first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with creating and making sure that we have a palette that we can work from, okay? And because we wanted this to look good, we're going to start off with some an artistic background that we can work from to really make it, explore the imagination and bring this to light, okay? A great resource for that is a website called Pexels, PEXELS.com. It's all free, royalty-free stuff. You can donate to people and whatnot, but you can just go out here and search for anything and you'll get some amazing pictures, okay? So because I wanted to have a dark background and I'm gonna be using this on a big screen, I decided to go, let's look for a night sky image. And so I started to look through the night skies and I wanted to find something along the lines of this, where I've got great natural colors that exist inside of this image, right, that I can use for the visuals inside of my report. There's kind of two different ways to get great looking colors and visuals. One, you can go to any of the like colors.com or the color design pickers that are out there. A great one though is to choose from an image that is in nature, right? It's going to look natural. It's going to inherently look amazing. And things are just going to naturally fit together. And you can actually, in many ways cheat from having to have that designer experience in place and that, on that side of the house. You don't have to necessarily know all that stuff, all right? Now, I landed on this visual as why I wanted this to, a visual I wanted to use for my report. And I'm going to outline why. Number one, I really liked how the colors that were here. We had a number of colors in here that really popped. We got blues, we got purples, we got the orange. And I really liked the reflection here with the mountains and then the mountain reflecting in the lake. And the reason being I really like this is I can extend this background to give myself a black background for most of my report and not allow the night sky to like dominate the colors that I'm engaged with, okay? So I'm going to download this and I'm going to hop into PowerPoint, okay? Go fire up PowerPoint and I'm going to go and I'm going to choose my custom slide size, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to set up so that it is a portrait, it's a widescreen and it's a portrait layout, okay? So that's going to give me the right dimensions that I want to make this available to me, okay? Now, I'm going to kind of cheat and go to the one I set up before so we could save just a little bit of time on some of this stuff. But once I've got that in place, I'm going to bring the visual in and make sure that I've got a copy of this visual on a slide that I can then work from and copy and paste this into other slides. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a new slide. And I'm going to take that visual that I had, copy, paste, and I'm going to slice this up, okay? I'm going to crop this. I'm going to bring my center to the middle, and there's something in here that I want you to see. I got a little bit of a challenge in here in that there's this like lightness here. I don't want that. That doesn't add any value to me. So I'm going to just crop over that. And I'm going to scroll up here, and I'm going to bring this down so I just get my top here, okay? When I've got that in place, I'm going to scroll up to the top of my slide. That will become the top of my background. I'll copy and paste again, and I will take my crop. I'm just going to shift my picture up so I have the bottom all set. By doing this, I now have my perfect reflection, my mirror here. And then I could take this down to my bottom. Oopsies. And I could stick this at the bottom of my slide. And then I can, and this is something you do need to do. This seems a little weird, but you need to make sure that you have a shape that fills out the rest of the slide. Don't just change the color in the background. I'll show you in a second why. Add that in the background on this. I'm going to, and again, or I don't want to just set this to black because there's an infinite number of shades of black. I want to take the black from the actual image that I had above so that these just blend in naturally. Once that's all set up and I've got a nice palette, so I've got a header and I've got a, oopsies, come on now. Boy, these things move quickly on you. I've got a nice footer and I've got a nice area in between to be able to put all of my content, okay? So I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna right click, or I'm gonna select everything, Control A, hit save as picture, and then I'm gonna save this into my backgrounds folder, okay? Now I've already got that created, so I don't necessarily have to do that. So we'll put this right back to where it was. All right, good to go. Now, next thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do this fairly quickly, is I'm gonna get, come on now. I'm gonna get that color palette that I was talking about from the night sky. And how I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna create, so you can kind of see it right here, but we're just gonna run through it real quick anyways. I'm gonna take a square, no outlines, I'm gonna paste 3 of them. And I am then going to fill in the center of this data. So what is this gonna be? I'm gonna just take my eyedropper and I'm gonna find the purpliest purple that I can, right, inside of my visuals. Because I've done that, I now have a purple that naturally fits in with my environment. So, okay, this is really great, but I don't just want to have a singular shade of purple. I want to use this as my palette creator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this purple and I'm going to put it over these other white squares. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my transparency by 25% on each one. So I'm going to set this one to 25. Set this one to 50. Come on. 50. And then this one is 75. Now, because I started with purple and I just recreated it on a white background, I now have shades of that same color that I can use. And to get this actual color, I just use the eyedropper to set that visual or that color aside, right? Do the same thing on each one of them. And then I go into, and get the more colors, go grab that hex number, and I paste it inside my visual. Reason I do this is so that when it comes time to actually building out my my PBIX file, and I'm going to be adding in a theme onto my PBIX file, I've got something to actually work from, right? Oopsies. That was not what. All right, so I'm going to go through it. I'm not going to like actually do all of this for you, right? We're going to cheat a bit, but you can see like this is just a process. It takes a few minutes to go through this, but it's not the end of the world. Here is the color palette I kind of came up with. I started using this and I've now established my background from one picture, and I've established a myriad of colors that I can use inside of my themes to get this up and running. Okay. The absolute next thing I'm going to do, though, is because those themes are great for like default colors, but I want to use colors that I can set to a function and just leverage over and over again without having to define them each and every time. And that's where this code right here, this switch statement becomes useful. So what I've done is I've taken that value that I'm going to be looking at across my reports, because I know what that's going to be around my bank name. And I've said, okay, for these specific bank names that are driving me, and these could be products, these could be anything along those lines, right? I'm going to use these different colors. So I can be very specific in the colors that I have. And I now have a DAX statement that allows me to establish that and then use that over and over again. So let me, oh, where did my chat go? Oh, where are you? Sorry. Where's the chat? Oh, weird. Okay. I am not a, clearly I am not a, I'm not a, what is this? I'm a Teams guy. I don't know what this thing is. Okay. Meetup or Windows or what, Regex or something like that. WebEx. I'm not a WebEx guy, but you can find this slide out or this code. It's out on my website. Okay, so I'm gonna set that stuff up. Now I want to go into my Power BI report and I want to get my palette all set up using that information. So first things first, I'm going to go into my model. Please note you are watching me use the new on object visuals. I've got this all set up and in place. I am using this today to just make sure I know how to use it. So you will learn or see something new if you haven't seen this before, right? So I am going to set up my page. So I want to make sure that the format on my canvas is set the way I'd like it to. So the new way to access that is just by right clicking and say format canvas. I am going to be changing my my canvas settings. This is going to become a custom settings. And where's my little note on this? Because I can't remember it. My custom settings are, my height is 2560, right? Because I went and I measured what the size, or I got the resolution of the monitors that's going to be on, right? And I set this up where I want. I'm going to set this, my canvas up. I'm going to then go in and I'm going to set my background. So I'm going to choose that file that I just saved. I'm going to set that background. I'm going to choose it to fit. I'm going to set my transparency to 0. All right. And then once that's done, one of the things that I want to do is I want to make sure that this background has an image on it as well. So on my wallpaper, I'm going to choose, and I'm going to use the original picture that I had. Okay. So I'm going to add that in. And I'm going to say, instead of normal, I'm just going to say fill. Okay. So that this is now going to fill up the size of the image that I've got. So you'll see these things start to come together, and I've got now have an entire environment that's going to look pretty sharp. Okay. I'm also going to go into my model and I'm going to add in that measure that we were just talking about. Okay. So my bank name color code is all set up here, and then I am good to go. Okay. Once this is done, I've now have my palette ready and I'm ready to start creating and adding visuals. But wait, we're not going to do this quite yet. Okay. Next thing we want to do is we want to come out of Power BI again. And you're saying, like, Chris, you're not spending a ton of time in Power BI. You're right. To start any project, you start out of Power BI. You start with understanding the business. You start outside of there. You don't just start inside of the tool and building stuff. Okay. So I'm going to lay out what my report design is going to look like. Okay. So I want to have my KPIs that are driving my business. I want those up at the top. I want those to be front and center for users to be able to track and see at a glance and just understand what those are. The next level is I want people to understand what the trends have been like over a period of time so that they can see and understand where we're going as an organization across one or more of our key visuals. That next layer is where we're going to start to put in all those insights, those new visuals, the content that we want our users to start to learn how to interact with and work with, okay? And then the very last area that we're going to have is going to be that details place where we allow people to download and export the data, and we're going to throw some filters on top to make it easy for them to hone in on exactly what they want. The goal being that we start to show users all of these other insights, show them how to do evaluations before they just go straight all the way down to that filters details, okay? So, as we do this, we're going to work top to bottom. We're going to make sure that we set in our custom function for our colors to make it easy. And then we want to make sure that anytime we use grids that we're adding in more than just a table, more than just a matrix, we're doing something to really make the data jump out to our users and not just lay flat on there like a green screen report, okay? So go back to our report. Oh, one quick thing. We are going to make sure that our page view on this is fit to width, okay? This ensures that we always have a good size on a report so that people can see bound to bound, they can see the whole thing. They're not dealing with just a smaller setting. Now, please note, people can zoom in and out, and it will, Power BI is pretty good at remembering that. But if you ever want to set it again, you just go back to page view, fit to width, okay? Now, as I add in these measures, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my KPIs. And this is very important to, number one, you need to know what your KPIs are. Number two, you need to know what the report name is going to be. Make sure you've established that. And then number three, make sure you understand what workspace this is going to be deployed to, okay? Those are very, very important things to understand before we start. Don't think you can do it later. I'm about to show you why, okay? So I'm going to first define my visuals. Oh my gosh, look at that. Did you just see what happened? Did you guys see it? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? Oh God. It was amazing. Just simply amazing. It created a card visual instead of a bar chart. I'm creating KPIs. I don't need a bar chart. I only have one measure selected. Why would I possibly need anything more than a card? Oh, this is the biggest improvement when we talk about like ease of use inside of Power BI I've seen in a long time. I absolutely love it. Dig in, give it a shot, okay? Because you then also get this capability. So this is my measure. I've got it formatted and set up the way I want it to. I like this guy. Now I'm going to copy it. I'm going to copy it. Come on. I'm going to paste it like I wanted to for the different measures that I've got. I'm going to drag that out onto my pane. I'm going to realize I need to spread this out more. And if you're doing this reporting, you should always be selecting all your visuals, going to format, align top, distribute horizontally or vertically. Always go through and do that. That should be a pattern that should become second nature to you. Okay. Now, oh God, look at this. This is incredible. I need to change these KPIs. Look, my field well is gone. I can't do that over here. Now, all I have to do is just go select the new amount or the new visual here or whatever KPI I want. And it's selected. I'm not doing a whole bunch of other stuff. No additional clicks, just selecting the item, changing the date on it or the item on it, and I'm off to the races. I don't know about you, but this right here is worth the price of admission. This blew me away when I saw that one. Oops, I already got that. Okay. There we go. All right. So now I've got this ready. Here's where it's vitally important for you to have already established what these workspaces are, okay? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to then save it and then publish this out in the report as is, okay? And let me show you why that's so critical. Once you've published this out into the into the Power BI service, you're going to go into the report space that's created, and you're going to create a brand new scorecard, okay? So for those of you who aren't familiar, I'm going to go in, I'm going to create a scorecard. And what this does is it allows me to track and measure a metric, gather feedbacks on it, set up alerts, all sorts of amazing things. This is unbelievable. And not only can I track it, I can attach it to a metric in a report that's out here. So I've got my new scorecard out here. I'm going to call this one sales. Sols I'm going to do. I'm going to go to setup, and instead of manually entering something, I'm going to say connect to data and watch this. This is the bee's knees. Now it's going to say, what was your recent thing that you went into? Oh, it's my dark Power BI report. I can say next. It's going to load up that report that I just published. And then I can click on that sales amount. Ask me, is this the one you want to connect? I can say yes. And then I can go through and I can repeat this for each of the KPIs that I have. Now, that process is a little repetitive. I'm going to go in, I'm going to show you an end result of this, okay? So here's an example of a scorecard that I've already created, and I've already connected it back to my the big KPIs that I'm tracking. Okay. So I've got these all set up. I can see where I'm at, and I can see like, oh, this one's behind. Everything else is on track, and I can see some comments on it. Oh, that's pretty cool, you say. Aha. Here's where we're gonna really do some magic. Okay. You can connect to anything in the Power BI service. So if you create a data set that's connected to Excel, you can do that, right? So it's a 1-2 step you have to do, but you can definitely do that. All right. At least that was a question I saw. Now what I can do, and oh, I just absolutely love this. Now I can go in, and there's this new metrics preview app. You do have to enable this in previews. I'm gonna click on it. Here, I'll show you where that is quick. If you go into options and settings, options, preview features, there is the metrics visual right here. You do have to have that enabled to see it. Enable it. It's awesome. Okay. Once I've got that connected, I can go on and I can say, oops, back to report. Why is that doing that? Okay. I can go ahead and say, I want to add metrics. Oh, it's a 2-screen. Now I have 2 options here. I can, number one, I can just add a metrics visual, so a singular metrics, or I can add the entire scorecard. In this case, I want to add just the metrics visual, and I'm going to show you why. All right. So I have the option of creating new metrics. I'm not going to do that because I've already set that up. I'm going to go to browse metrics, and I'm going to choose my Power BI scorecard, and I'm going to choose my sales amount. When I add this in, I now have a visual for my Power BI report that I can now track and manage. I can now recreate this for each one of these visuals. And then I'm going to show you some great trickery. I can set it up so that I have my KPIs visible, but then I flip over with a simple toggle switch and button. So I bring my visuals up so people in my organization can see. Oh, these should be bigger. I want to, there we go. That they can see inside there the trend lines, and more importantly, the comments that are going on the reports, and from within the report itself, they can provide feedback, coaching, and guidance to the people who own the KPIs. So from within the report, I can click on a note. It's going to pop up the full scorecard experience. Come on, don't fail me now. Always when you're the demo gods are never kind, right? Let's try this one. Killing me. Demo gods killing me. All right. Well, I guarantee this works most of the time. This? No. All right. Well, what that allows users to do, and maybe I can showcase it inside the, we'll talk it through. They can actually see what comments and feedbacks exist inside of the Power BI service. They can, managers can actually go in and set these things. They can make changes to them. They can say, hey, not going to work for me at all this time, huh? Why? They can go in and they can actually provide feedback on it. I wonder if it's because I had it open there. God, this is so cool. Why won't you just work? Dang it. Oh well. They can provide feedback. They can provide insights. This blew executives out of the water when we added it in, because now instead of it just being an informative thing, it's a thing that can instill action and get people to actually do things. Because you can actually tag someone inside of a scorecard and say, like in this case, the Power BI luchador was here, was tagged. I tagged him and said, you got to get on this. You got to do something on it. And you could set up alarms, you can follow it. Oh, it's the bee's knees. Okay.
So Chris, I have a quick question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew about all those features in metrics in the service directly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't know you could see them in the report. Can you write back to the metrics from the report, or do they have to go back to the metrics?
You sure can, as long as it doesn't do that weird that.
Well, I mean, you're in Power BI desktop, so.
Oh yeah. No,
Yeah,
no.
like
So.
But
Sure.
like from the service, I was just curious, can they write back from within the report itself?
Yep.
Like update there.
Yep. So here we are. I click, I pull this up. This is on track.
Is that a recent update?
No.
Okay.
Oh, it's been like this for a while.
Okay. Yeah, that piece I was not familiar with, just from the metrics section.
Yeah, in fact, I just did this in the like setting this to behind is what I did earlier today. So it literally worked 2 hours ago, but it's not working for you because it hates you or me or somewhere in between.
Well, while we wait for it to spin through, can I ask, with the addition of notes, I'm curious what the performance impact is. Presentation gods fighting against us notwithstanding, I would imagine that sort of that read element, that read-write element that's happening where the notes are getting carried over, might have a negative impact on report performance. Is that not the case?
No, it is. Other than why it's not working right now, I don't know. It is. Well, and for whatever reason, it is a spotty thing in presentations. It works like magic. It is super fast. It is just like going, because what ends up happening is basically from within there, this is what opens up. This embed experience is what opens up inside of the Power BI report. So you end up seeing this, and then you can say new check-in. Maybe it's not that bad at Power BI Luchador. Maybe you're not so fine. We'll say it's at risk, okay? And you do that, you click on this button, and then it goes back to the report, and it just has it there. It is amazingly good. It's the most powerful feature that no one's using, and maybe others are having that error more than I am. But I mean, now when I go in and look, it says at risk. There's 3 comments on it. Oh, look at that. I can open my notes. I wonder if it's doing something to me. But just that same back button takes you right back to it. It is, generally speaking, it's fantastic.
And where does the underlying data for those notes, where does that live? Does it ultimately stay within the Power BI service itself in some backend table?
Yep. Yeah. Well, okay. So here's a great question. So inside reports, let's take a look at the scorecard. Scorecard has 2 components. It has the scorecard, and this is the kicker here. When you do publish and create that scorecard, you do need to go in and set up how often you want that to pull, right? Just it's a data set, right? So you schedule up, okay, hey, I want this to refresh every single day. That's how often I want the scorecard to run. But because it's a data set, what can you do with a data set? You can build a report on it, right? So I could create a report from this. Start from scratch, and let's go see if we have any of that stuff, right? So I've got my scorecard. Oh, my notes are here, right? So I could say contact created by, right? Last modified, right? And what about my notes? There it is. Look at that.
Cool. Thank you. It's awesome.
Right? Yeah. So you have this incredible ability here. Inside here, where's my my target and my value? Now you can actually track those values as they go through time. So if you need some lightweight ability to snapshot and track a value over time, this allows you to do this. This has incredibly powerful. I guess I don't need color there. That's useless. Display name. Oh, that's okay. All right, but like this has some incredibly powerful components that you can have here, right? And I'll say another thing that I like to use that for is a data quality check. And in this case, I use the entire embed scorecard so I can actually see the quality of my data over time. And the only time I have a variance, because I've created a data set that just tracks quality of data where all of my values should be 0. If it's ever anything other than 0, this will show values. So these two, no, I've artificially dummied this up to show issues, but now I can see inside my executive report, if there's something that's off, they can go right into here again and see like, oh, not only do I know it's off, but there's a conversation going on about it. And I could even do a new check-in and just say, hey, what are you ever going to fix this? It's been months. And I'll even tag, right? Because that Power BI Luchador is a slouch. Right, I'll tag him, save it. We'll see if he ever ends up fixing this stuff, right? Now, this is super powerful, super easy to use, but it's why I say get your metrics set up right away. See how quickly that went in? Oh, there it goes. You see that? I don't know what I was doing wrong, but now it's working like a champ, right? So now I can actually see that scorecard that I've selected and I can interact with it. And that's how that's supposed to work on this other page. I don't know why it's not, but it's not. Call it a day. Does that make sense? I hope.
18 participants. Yes, thank you.
Okay, awesome. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my presentation. What am I doing here? Okay, so I got my KPIs together. I got my scorecards to go with the KPIs, right? So I've got my action items there, right? So I'm delivering more than just KPIs. I'm delivering actionable things to people. Now I'm going to go into my trends. I want to do something with my trends, okay? I'm just going to delete that just to get it out of there. All right, so I want to take my same value. I'm going to paste that in. But this is not the visual I want. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to start adding in some, wait a minute. So I'm going to add some data in this case. And in this case, I'm going to add in my year month, right? And so look at that. It's already changing what visual it's recommending. It's saying, hey, you need to have this bar chart, right? So I'm going to kind of space this out the way I want it to be. And I do want to make sure that I'm using all of the available room that I have while leaving a gutter on my sides, okay? So that I have some kind of spacing around what I'm looking at and I'm not just having everything go edge to edge. That's never any good, okay? Now, once I've got this in place though, I want to do some more to this, right? So this is not quite enough. I want to do small multiples because I want to use that bank name. So I'm going to go in and, oh gosh, I love this new on visual. You see how easy that was? Oh, so I'm going to go to dim reseller where I know that bank name is. I'm going to select that and have that set up. All right, but this is not everything that I want it to be. Oopsies. What just happened? Oh, I know. Small multiples. There we go. I want this to be set up with I mean to do that. There we go. I want this to be set up so that these colors match and then I can see everything on there, right? So I'm gonna select my visual, and you know what? I want to see the data that I'm looking at when I'm doing this. I like this new custom visual thing, or on object, but I want to see the data too, because I'm accustomed to that. So I'm gonna right click on my data up here. I'm gonna say open a new pane, and now I can see all the fields my field well like I'm accustomed to, and I can see all the visual settings. So I want to go in. I'm going to do some things on my small multiples. Number one, I want there to be 4 columns, so I get rid of the scroll. And the only scroll I have is here. So okay, that's good. But we want the colors to always be similarly set. That's where that DAX statement comes in. So I'm going to change my default formatting, and that's right here under functions. I'm going to change that to field value. Now, all I do is go and I select that field value from the table I put it in, which is factory seller sales. Put in that bank name color code, click OK. And now, boom, all my colors change to the ones that I had set up for that bank name, right? So I could even, can I do this too? Oh my gosh, look at that. The titles on the visuals, we're going to do from a field value, and we're going to do the exact same thing, right? Dim reseller fact, reseller sales, boom, boom. And now everything I have pretty much is going to start to come in with the same colors. The reason I want to do this is I like to always take my time. It's the first time when I'm starting to apply some common formatting tips I'm going to use in other places, right? Like when I first created the card, I made sure to format this exactly the way I wanted, so I could recreate and use that same formatting over and over again. I did the same thing here, because now if I look over here, this has got my trend space done. Now I'm going to start to get into that insights area where I want to showcase all of the new content that's available inside the Power BI service, okay? So here's where I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it, I'm going to paste it, and now I'm going to start to try out some new visuals into this new section, right? And because I've already set this up right, it's going to allow me to actually make that very easy to do, right? So instead of suggesting a type, I want this to be a scatter chart, right? And for the purposes of making this easier to go through and do, I'm just going to run through and talk about how we laid this out and got this set up, okay? So I want this space to be my exploratory space to showcase all of these new visuals. And instead of having all of these visuals attempting to try to mash all of these visuals inside of one space, I want to make sure that all of my visuals have enough room in it for my users to interact with it and do, what they need within that space, right? I don't want them to have to be scrolling and doing all sorts of stuff or have things be too small. But I want to give visual cues and outlines that they can use to make these things easier to interact with. So for example, I have my Guardian bank. I've got the banks, my main focus here, as well as the items that are visualized are down here. So I've selected Guardian bank, but now I'm going to select the top 4 companies that are inside Guardian bank. And now I'm going to play this axis. So I can actually watch the performance of these banks over time and track them and see how this works and operates. By doing this, I give my users the ability to explore and understand what goes on inside of their data in a visual way that many of them may not even know or realize that they can do, right? Seeing these things, understanding that Breaks and Gears takes this journey, right, is something that maybe they don't know, right? So I want to prompt my users to be asking the right questions by having the right context and information available for them, right? And I want to do it in a way that they're maybe not accustomed to, but in a way that's friendly and easy to understand. So for example, these are often circles. I changed them to squares to kind of reframe them, right? I'm going to do that with each of these different visuals. Oh man, why you got to be like that? Oh. Why is the colors? Why are my colors all screwed up? Or I don't know why the colors are messed up, but that happens with demos. But again, I want to give them the ability to see the key influencers, interact with it, see what's causing increases, decreases, or what's going on inside the space, right? Again, prompting them, giving that motivation to explore and understand these new toolings, right? Show them root cause so that they can see, like, okay, sales amount gets driven through, and it's really first bike store might be one of the first places that I might want to be looking to engage on, right? And maybe I want to actually add more into like my tooltip here so that people can understand more about that first bike store, because maybe like, okay, they're a big reseller of us, but maybe they're at risk because of a change in the market, right? I want to bring that into this experience for them. And then the same thing with the tops and bottoms, right? Now, this is just your classical filter context, which just highlights and shows off. Come on now, the top 10 reseller sales, and this is your bottom 10. But I've got something here where I want to make sure they understand that just because someone's at the top, or bottom doesn't mean they're good or bad, but that this is an opportunity for people who are at the top to coach and mentor the people that are at the bottom. So I want to give people guidance around this so that they're not taking the wrong next steps. Now, ideally, I'd be able to go to the business and say, hey, what guidance, how do you want to coach people? But in this case, let's pretend I don't have that ability to go to them. So where are we going to go to? Who do we love? We love our Chat GPT, right? So we're going to ask Chat GPT, what are some reasons for top performers to coach people who are struggling? Well, this is fantastic. But this is probably too much, right? I don't have that much real estate. So I'm going to slightly modify this. I'm going to say in 2 paragraphs. And now I'm going to get something that's relatively usable. Oh, and it's still a little bit too much. So I'm just going to take the top. I'm just going to take the top part and paste it in. Right, and make sure that I've got this all set up. No, I probably should have like not had backgrounds or something like that, or some formatting is in here off, but you can get the idea of how we can leverage this new AI tool to add in something that, I'm not straight up. I love data. I love working with visualizations. Writing is not necessarily my strength, but I was able to come up with something that looks relatively good without having to go in and author everything. Okay. Now, I've got this all set up. I go on from here, like, okay, so now I have my KPIs with my actions. I'll even actually, here's where I'll put in the SMART narrative. So if you're not familiar with the SMART narrative, you can actually just insert a SMART narrative. It'll actually write up it'll create a write-up for you based upon what's on the page. Now I got to go in and format this. You're going to be like that, huh? So I go in and format it to make it look right. But this helps people. This helps the like 70% of people who find this stuff too hard and confusing to look at. They don't understand it. It's got all sorts of math in it. And outside the people on this call, who likes math, right? Like I love math. You probably like math, but people don't like math, right? This gives them some context that they can read and understand and look at and go, okay, I think I understand what I'm looking at. This helps me go understand what's going on. So I like to add that in. And I like to do that kind of at the top so that anyone who's looking at these KPIs and these things make sense, they can also take advantage of that little smart narrative. Now, last thing that we have is the thing that we all dread. We don't like it, but it's what's out there. We need to add in the filters and the details because they said they have to be able to export everything. We're purposely putting it way at the bottom so that they don't do that, or so that they'll hopefully stop along the way because humans are lazy. Hopefully along the way, they'll stop and do some exploration. But if they don't, down at the bottom, we've got their details, but we've made sure to do a number of things to hopefully keep them inside of Power BI versus always dragging and dumping stuff out. Number one, we made sure that it visually looked appealing, right? We had we leveraged those same color backgrounds to give the bank name some coherency. We've added in some bar charts here around sales amounts and order quantity. And generally speaking, we've just made this visually appealing to look at. We did make sure that we added in all of the relevant slicers for anything or for any of the fields that they have inside of the matrix so that they can easily slice that down. But if there's other things that they need to filter on, I'm not afraid to put those in on the page here and direct them and say, hey, okay, if you need to filter this stuff, you can go over into this page setting and you can make these filter changes here, right? Now I don't like this. I think this makes sense when it comes to like something you see on a board. Like I said earlier, this feels like a marketing piece, right? Something that's hard for people to use. And it might be hard when you're looking at so much. This is also where we want to then go in and make sure we've added in an informational object that gives people business descriptions and understanding of why they would use any of these visuals. What is it that it does? How they would use it for their context. Give them descriptions, give those interactions, and give them the guidance with it, okay? And then because I don't necessarily always do exactly what I'm told, because in some ways I think I might have some something to contribute and add to the conversation. So after I created this entire thing, I also gave the users, I said, okay, hey, this is great, awesome. But how about we have these visuals as well, right? Just a page that's got it, just a page that has the things that are relevant to you, relevant to what you have. Post those out and use this big report out on the big screens. That's fine. This can be up and running. But when you sit down in meetings, go and look at the stuff in smaller bite-sized components, so it's easier for you to look at, easier for you to navigate. And lo and behold, what did they do? We tracked telemetry around what people were using. We found that the daily dashboards that were up were, of course, being used. But when it came to actually interacting with the dashboards, we found everyone was going into these actually drilled down details. So this is really also a story on how you can also help people go from, hey, I want something that's not good for me, to here's something that's usable and actionable for you. Okay. All right. Well, I guess I'm getting much better at this presentation because now I do it in an hour now, I guess. So what questions you guys have? I saw, I I see lots of things flying around on a chat, but I'm having problems opening it. So, you guys have questions, issues, items?
Chris, we've been fielding questions where we can.
Okay.
I saw enthusiasm right away for watching this video over because of the beautiful density of everything that you were covering. I
Okay,
see
great.
Rishi's got his hand up though, so why don't you go ahead, Rishi?
Well, absolutely. I wanted to ask about that. You had a feature where you were showing like the progression over time where the tiles were moving as time
Mhm.
progressed. And I was wondering how you implement that.
Oh, well, that's simple enough. Now we'll see if I can do it with on-object visuals, but if not, we'll sort that out. So this is just a scatter chart, right? So nothing magical or foreign here, right? I added in what are the values I'm looking at. So like bank name, reseller name is the drill down path. I've got my axes set up. So I've got sales along one axis, order quantity on the next. Size is set on what amount shipped, right? And then I set my fiscal axis or my play axis to the fiscal year. Okay. So I could actually see the years unfold as it plays out. Now, when you add in this fiscal axis, you get the year that it's moving along, and you get this play bar along the bottom. Okay. Once that's there, you can just hit play, and it will run and it will execute. You also natively get the ability to click on one item, and you'll be able to watch its path as it will through time. So you can see where it goes and how it operates. And by honing and just hovering over it, you can actually track and see it. Now you can also combine your clicks, right? So I could say Guardian Bank, I can hold down control, and I can actually see, okay, hey, this is the path for this one client. Or I could say, okay, from Guardian Bank, let's look at Furthermost Bike Shop, and I could see its path through time. But if you want to, oh, and there's also the ability for your markers. This is where I made the change. Under markers, you have the opportunity for shape, and you can actually change that. Like most of the time it's set to circles. You can do squares, or you can do diamonds, or X's. Oh, that's garbage. I would imagine you could actually like potentially import something here. That's something that I'm not necessarily. Oh, look at that. You can actually zoom up the size. Cool. Rishi, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm a big fan of grouping stuff, right? So I just, you can select your individual visuals and then group it, right? That makes it really easy to toggle through and create these buttons to toggle through different bookmarks. So if you're ever in a situation where you want to do this, that makes that much easier to set up and use. I don't know why my colors are all wonky. That's not okay.
So Naveen put in a question in the chat asking
Mhm.
if this can be used to measure OKRs. And Naveen, maybe you can elaborate a little bit. I'm used to thinking of OKRs as synonymous with KPIs, but maybe it's a bit different.
He's probably referring back to the scorecards. And yeah, I think that is specifically what those are used for, is for tracking OKRs.
I mean, I forgot. Yeah, I think it just kind of depends on like what your OKRs are and how you're measuring them.
Yeah.
How your organization is using them, because the objective is probably a bit broader, but is your key result something that you have, that you're putting results in to a data source somewhere so that it can be pulled into those metrics.
Right. And now I have an entirely different presentation on metrics. But the whole purpose of metrics is to allow you to not just connect them to those enterprise data sources, but to really understand that not everything necessarily goes into the enterprise data source, especially at a high level, those items that are set and driven by the company, or driven inside of an organization. Sometimes it's a very nebulous number, like advanced data literacy. Right now, there's a number of ways that we could, definitively track this, right? But we could say, we could even just say that, hey, we're on track with this and this is good, right? Or we could manually assign some metrics, even if we're not, right? Like, so, okay, I'm going to do manually. I'm going to say we're at 50 and our target is to get to 100, right? I mean, how would you know if you've advanced data literacy? I mean, maybe you could come up with some advanced things around that, but this type of thing where it's just, hey, are you on track on these broader goals? What's people's understanding? That's as, you could do that as well. And I will say, this entire experience, the scorecard and how it ties to any Power BI report that's out there, and allows for manually entering, was all driven by needs that Microsoft had in order to provide analytics to Satya Nadella. Satya uses this experience on a day in, day out basis, I understand. Well, maybe not day in, day out, but this is how Microsoft tracks the performance broadly of their organization across all of their key metrics and OKRs. And so plan for many more features to come into this space. So if it doesn't have something now, it will tomorrow.
Fabulous. And since other people aren't asking questions, I'll jump in and ask one more on this one. The scorecard, I can see that there's a manual input element when you were plugging it in. Is there a way to both have the option for manual input and to use data that's already available in the Dataverse or for some other source?
So yeah, you saw that I connected it to the report that I was in, right? Like this actually connects to that report, and you can actually, I'm in edit mode now. Hang on, I gotta do is stop being edit mode, read mode. There we go.
Okay, perfect.
And why I like this is often there's the sales measures that you're tracking to, but like your HR measures or other departments, they'll be tracked in other reports. So this just tracks the metric. You go to the report for the entire data story. Right? Oh, come on. There it goes. All right. So you go from that metric into that story and go, okay, here's all the information about it. Okay, I understand it. And then you go back to your scorecard to track the other things. Now, in this case, I have it all off of one dashboard, but you could 100% make it off of, each OKR or each metric could point back to a different report and a different story, because there might be different key players and leading and trailing metrics that are important to it, right? The things that you look for on sales type activities are going to be different than you do around customer service or product development, right? Like sales, you care about phone calls and appointments and quotes and bids. Those metrics mean nothing to a product manager, right? Those product managers have all sorts of different metrics. So yeah, that's why I love this feature so much.
So Kasahan, and I apologize for butchering your name if I did, asked about how one visualizes the root cause. Leslie has a blog post that she shared, but maybe you can briefly give a high level on that one.
Yeah, and I would, so I'm going to be very, I will be high level. Do read Leslie's blog. It's going to be much more detailed. But the whole point of a root cause is not just understanding good, but often understanding bad performance. And that's where oh my God, what the heck's the name of this visual? Tree map? Decomposition tree. Holy cow. That's why it's useful to be able to go in and say, okay, hey, okay, I want to go to my next level, but okay, show me by low value. What's breaking things down, right? Or what's causing problems in this space, right? And to be able to go up and down and find that root cause for things exploding or going well, or going the other way, showing things going negative, right? Or maybe you have a very specific, like, okay, we have to go, it doesn't make sense to go from mountain bikes to anything other than product, and then we'll go in and look at something else, right? But that's how the decomposition tree works. Leslie, you want to chime in?
Yeah,
you have more on
not my blog post, but one that I came across at some point that I remember that was
Okay.
specifically about how to use the decomposition tree in Power BI.
Got it. It is quite nice. It does a great job of highlighting and sending things down the right path and having visuals, and yeah, it's fantastic. All right, any other questions or items we want to hit on? I think I touched the reason I absolutely love this presentation is because to do a great Power BI report, you have, especially like this, you've got to touch on like all aspects. You have to have a great model. You have to have excellent row level security. You've got to have a sharing pattern. You've got to have all of these different components in place, and you have to use them very selectively so that it makes a good end product.
Chris, I have loved this, and there's so much I want to practice once we review the recording again. I did have one question about user adoption.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm often inclined to try to break things out into a KPI page versus a data exploration, data spelunking page of sorts, to have those things sort of grouped together between the informative versus the exploratory. Do you find that user adoption is more effective when you have a longer page that's grouped in the way that you showed us?
No, I do not like these long pages. I do prefer to have them broken out, like I was kind of showing you, with like some give a page nav on there, make it easy for them to go back and forth. I think this is a much easier way for people to navigate and adopt the stuff.
Gotcha.
Having one page that they scroll up and down on, I don't necessarily think that this is the best pattern. In fact, performance can be a real challenge here because this page will load all together as one entity, and it is still JavaScript that loads all of Power BI. So if you have the misfortune of having this query execute first, right, everything else could wait based on that. So rarely do you see that, right? Most of the time these things load fine, but it can be a problem.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions, gang?
All right, so let's make sure I hit on everything. Metrics, create insights section. Yeah, create details section, showcase breakouts in one. Yep, create page navigation. So before I go, some more stuff about me quick. On Wednesday, Andy Cutter we're going to be doing a lunch and learn noon. We're going to be going over Snaps and Power BI, how they work together. This is going to be an amazing conversation. Andy sent over some of the stuff he's doing. I am super excited about this conversation. You guys should be too. Block off your calendars. Wednesdays at noon. Join me there. I also have, and this is what I was pitching, this just passed legal, this just passed marketing. I'm now able to publish my interview with Amir Netz on the future of work with data, what he sees, how our jobs are going to start to be able to work together, how we're going to work and operate. What the heck does ChatGPT and these new AI tools mean for us? We're going to all be out of jobs. What's going to actually happen? This is a fantastic conversation that we got to have. I'm going to be releasing it soon. I've got some other editing, and we'll schedule that up and we'll get that out there shortly. Now, I also have this going on. What else? Oh, if you ever need any assistance in Power BI or data, do feel free to hit me, Megan, or Matt Pluster up by going over to www.bakertilly.com/digital. Fill out a request form. We can help you engage with you there on a professional level. And if you're a Power BI admin, we run and host a monthly Power BI Admin Council roundtable where we, Power BI admins get together. We talk about the challenges and opportunities of running Power BI in organizations, inside of large organizations. I think we have around 200 people that are signed up for it. Each time we have like around 100 people that attend, if not more, or I mean, sometimes less, but that's a general number that show up. So it's an absolute fantastic conversation. I think we're going to be going over Power BI Power BI admin best practices next time. So if you're interested, hit myself or Megan up for a personal invite. This is something we do. It is invite only because it's not, we want just admins to attend, generally speaking. So please hit us up and let us know. But that's it for me. I got nothing more.
Are you exhausted? I feel like you must be exhausted.
Well, this is the second one today, so yeah, that
was the presentation equivalent of maybe not a marathon, but I'd say a 10K. So
yeah,
I think you're doing great.
Well, awesome.
Thank you so much for taking the time, Chris. Even with this being your second booking of the day, I got so much out of it, and I know from the chat alone that the rest of the folks at Power BI DC did too. Unless anybody has items that they want to ask around the work that they're doing, or basically we can use the last 30 minutes if anyone has any burning work-related questions. But if not, we may end this session a bit early. Going once. Going twice. All right, gang. I think that'll be it for us tonight then. I'm so glad that we got to see Dax, and I appreciate all of the insights that you brought to the table. And for the folks that have been asking, yes, we will have this recording up on the YouTube channel when Leslie and I figure that out, which will be soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. You've been wonderful to speak with and meet with. I really appreciate it. If you ever want me to come speak again, just hit me up. I would love to talk with you guys again.
Oh, we'll so take you up on that.
Oh, fantastic.
All right, Leslie, anything else before we close it out for the night? I am taking her silence as a sign that we're good. So thank you all for coming, and we will see you next month.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Everyone.
Bye.